Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. It all started on a Tuesday, one of those gray, unassuming days where the sky can't quite decide whether to cry or just sulk. I was in my late 50s then. My kids grown and flown, and life with my husband, Tom, had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Tom worked for a large architectural firm, and his boss, Mr. Arthur Davies, was a man I'd only encountered a handful of times at stiff company dinners. He was always impeccably dressed, a little aloof, with a reputation for being demanding but fair. Honestly, I found him a tad intimidating, the kind of man whose silence felt heavier than any reprimand. So, when Tom came home that Tuesday looking a bit bewildered and said, "Sarah, Mr. Davies called. He wants to see you," my heart did a little nervous tap dance. "Me?" I asked, wiping my hands on my apron. I'd been attempting a new sourdough recipe, and flour dusted my nose. "What on earth for? Is everything all right with your job?" That was my first thought, of course. Your husband's boss wants to see you, and your mind jumps to the worst-case scenario. Tom ran a hand through his thinning hair. "That's the strange part. He said it wasn't about work, not directly. He said it was a personal matter and he'd prefer to discuss it with you. He asked if you'd be willing to meet him tomorrow afternoon." A personal matter? With me? I barely knew Arthur Davies. We'd exchanged polite pleasantries, commented on the anemic canapes at the holiday party, that sort of thing. Nothing that warranted a private, personal meeting. My mind raced. Had I said something untoward at the last dinner? Did he somehow find out about my rather vocal critique of the firm's new lobby design, which I'd only shared with Tom and our cat, Marmalade? Did he say what it was about? I pressed, my sourdough forgotten. "No, just that it was important and he'd appreciate your discretion," Tom replied, looking as puzzled as I felt. He suggested meeting at his home. Gave me the address. His home. That was even stranger. I'd pictured a summons to a sterile, glass-walled office downtown, not an invitation to his private residence. Mr. Davies lived in one of those older, grander neighborhoods, the kind with wrought iron fences and ancient trees standing like sentinels. I'd driven through it a few times, admiring the stately homes, but never imagining I'd set foot in one. Certainly not his. A flutter of apprehension mixed with an undeniable curiosity began to stir. "Well," I said, trying to sound more nonchalant than I felt. "I suppose I have to go, don't I? Can't very well say no to your boss." Tom gave me a grateful look. "Thanks, Sarah. I'm sure it's nothing to worry about." He's always been a bit unconventional, despite the stiff exterior. Unconventional. That wasn't a word I'd ever associated with Arthur Davies. The next day, I found myself driving towards that unfamiliar part of town. I'd changed my outfit 3 times, settling on a smart but comfortable navy dress. I wanted to look presentable, respectful, but not like I was trying too hard. My palms were a little damp as I pulled up to a large Victorian house, painted a deep forest green with crisp white trim. It was beautiful, undeniably, with a wide porch and stained glass windows, but it also looked rather somber, overshadowed by enormous, gnarled oak trees that seemed to guard its secrets. Taking a deep breath, I walked up the stone path, the crunch of gravel under my sensible heels the only sound apart from the distant hum of city traffic. I rang the bell, and the door was opened not by a housekeeper, as I might have expected, but by Mr. Davies himself. He was dressed casually, in a soft, worn-looking sweater and corduroy trousers, a far cry from his usual sharp suits. He even offered a small, almost shy smile. "Sarah, "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice softer than I remembered. "Please come in." The hallway was dim, paneled in dark wood, filled with the scent of old books and lemon polish. It was quiet, almost unnervingly so. He led me through to a sitting room at the back of the house. It was cozier than the hall, with a fireplace, though unlit, and comfortable-looking armchairs. But it wasn't where we stopped. He gestured towards a pair of French doors. "What I wanted to show you, well, it's out here," he said, a strange note in his voice, a blend of nervousness and something akin to pride. He opened one of the doors, and the light that flooded in was almost blinding after the dimness of the house. And the scent that wafted in with it, it was earth and flowers and something else, something green and alive and utterly unexpected. He stepped aside, a silent invitation to precede him. My heart was thumping now, a mixture of nerves and a burgeoning sense of intrigue. What on earth was he about to show me? I stepped through the doorway, and for a moment, I could only blink, trying to adjust to the sudden sensory overload. The air was thick with the fragrance of roses and damp soil, the buzzing of bees a gentle symphony. As my eyes focused, I saw it. A garden. But not just any garden. This was a riot of color and life, a hidden world tucked away behind the stern facade of his house, a place of such vibrant, unexpected beauty that it literally took my breath away. It stretched out before me, a tapestry of flowers I couldn't name, winding paths, and lush greenery, all bathed in the soft afternoon sun. This, from the man I'd pegged as all business and boardrooms? It was the last thing I'd ever expected. He stood beside me, watching my face, and I realized this was only the beginning of the surprise. The sheer scale of it was the first thing that struck me. This wasn't just a few flower beds. It was a meticulously planned landscape, a sprawling sanctuary that seemed to go on, hidden from the world by high stone walls draped in ivy. There were roses, of course, dozens of varieties, climbing up trellises, bursting from bushes in shades of crimson, pale pink, and sunny yellow. But there were also delphiniums standing like blue sentinels, swathes of lavender humming with bees, and delicate, bell-shaped flowers I'd only ever seen in botanical gardens. A small, moss-covered stone path meandered through it all, inviting exploration. This is incredible, Mr. Davies," I managed to stammer out, finally finding my voice. I turned to look at him and saw a flicker of something warm in his eyes, a vulnerability I hadn't anticipated. "Arthur, please," he said quietly. "Out here, at least. And this," he swept a hand encompassingly, "is my obsession, I suppose you could call it." He began to walk slowly along the path, and I fell into step beside him. He pointed out different plants, telling me their names, their origins, the little quirks of their care. He spoke of soil composition and pruning techniques with the same passion and precision I imagined he used when discussing architectural blueprints. It was a startling transformation. The formidable CEO was gone, replaced by a gentle enthusiast, his hands lightly dusted with soil, his face animated as he described the challenge of nurturing a particularly stubborn breed of orchid in a small, shaded alcove we passed. "I don't understand," I said, after a few minutes of absorbing the sheer sensory delight of the place. "Why show this to me?" He paused by a weathered stone bench, half hidden beneath a weeping willow. "Tom mentioned once, a long time ago, that you had a fondness for gardening, that you had a way with making things grow." He looked at me then, a direct, searching gaze. "My wife, Eleanor, this was her garden. She designed it, planted most of it. After she passed away 5 years ago now, I couldn't bring myself to let it go. But I'm an architect, Sarah, not a gardener. I follow instructions I can maintain, but I can't create. Not like this. Not with living things. His voice was heavy with a grief that was still palpable, softened by the gentle beauty surrounding us. Suddenly, the pieces began to click into place. This wasn't just a garden. It was a memorial, a living testament to a lost love. And I, a near stranger, had been invited into this intensely personal space. It's been getting harder, he continued, his gaze drifting over a bed of vibrant, multicolored tulips that seemed to glow in the sunlight. I have a man who comes, does the heavy work, the basics. But the soul of it, Eleanor's touch, it's fading. I see it, even if he doesn't. And I thought, he hesitated, then looked at me again. I thought perhaps you might understand, or at the very least, appreciate what she was trying to create here. I sat down on the bench, overwhelmed by a wave of emotions, sadness for his loss, awe at the beauty she had indeed created, and a profound sense of humility that he would share something so deeply personal with me. The air was sweet with a scent of honeysuckle from a nearby vine. "Arthur," I said softly, "it's the most beautiful garden I've ever seen. It feels loved." A small, wistful smile touched his lips. It was. She poured her heart into this place. Every plant has a story, a memory attached. That old rose bush over there. He pointed to a gnarled, rambling climber heavy with fragrant, creamy blossoms, was a cutting from her grandmother's garden in England. She smuggled it back in her suitcase after a visit, terrified it wouldn't survive the journey. We sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, the only sounds the bird song and the gentle rustle of leaves. The tension I'd felt earlier had completely evaporated, replaced by a sense of quiet connection. This man, whom I had perceived as distant and unapproachable, was revealing a depth of feeling, a tenderness, that was profoundly moving. Then he said, "There's more. Something specific I wanted to show you, something I need an opinion on. Or perhaps just someone to see it who might understand its value beyond the monetary." He rose and gestured towards a smaller, almost hidden path that led away from the main garden, towards what looked like a Victorian-era greenhouse, its glass panes glinting in the sun. "If you have a little more time?" My earlier anxieties were long gone, replaced by a deep well of empathy and an even stronger curiosity. This quiet, grieving man had entrusted me with a glimpse into his soul, hidden away in this breathtaking sanctuary. What else could this secret garden and its custodian possibly hold? I nodded, a sense of anticipation blooming within me. "I have all the time you need, Arthur." The path to the greenhouse was narrower, shaded by overhanging branches of lilac and something that smelled like jasmine. It felt like we were venturing into an even more secluded part of this hidden world. The greenhouse itself was a beautiful structure, its wooden frame painted the same forest green as the house, its glass panes a little misted from the humidity within. Arthur paused at the door, his hand resting on the old-fashioned latch. "Eleanor called this her laboratory," he said, a fond smile playing on his lips. "She was always experimenting in here, trying to propagate rare species, cross-pollinating sometimes with spectacular success, sometimes with rather fragrant failures." He chuckled softly, a sound that seemed to hold both warmth and a lingering sorrow. He opened the door, and a wave of warm, moist air, thick with the scent of damp earth and exotic blooms, enveloped me. Inside, it was like stepping into a tropical rainforest. Orchids of every imaginable color and shape dripped from hanging baskets, their aerial roots like delicate green tendrils. Ferns unfurled their fronds in shady corners, and strange, vibrant flowers I couldn't even begin to name grew in profusion on tiered wooden shelves. Sunlight streamed through the glass roof, dappled by the leaves, creating an almost ethereal glow. It was breathtaking, a jewel box of botanical wonders. She had a particular passion, Arthur continued, his voice hushed, as if we were in a sacred space. She was trying to cultivate a truly blue rose. Not lavender, not purple, but a genuine, deep blue. It was her holy grail. He led me deeper into the greenhouse, past tables laden with seedlings and terracotta pots. Then he stopped before a small, roped-off section at the very back. There, on a slightly elevated platform, bathed in a carefully angled shaft of light, was a single rose bush. It was unlike any I had ever seen. The plant itself was healthy, with glossy, dark green leaves, but it was the flower it bore that made me gasp. It wasn't a vibrant, electric blue, nothing artificial or garish. Instead, it was a soft, dusky, almost ethereal shade of twilight blue, with hints of silver and lavender in its depths. The petals were perfectly formed, velvety in appearance, and it exuded a delicate, almost spicy fragrance. It was exquisite, utterly unique. This, Arthur said, his voice filled with a quiet reverence, is her midnight blue. It bloomed for the first time a month after she left us. It was the only one. I've managed to keep the plant alive, of course, but I live in constant fear of losing it. The local horticultural society, they've offered to try and propagate it, but Eleanor was always so protective of her experiments until she felt they were perfect. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. What do I do, Sarah? She left copious notes, of course, meticulous as always. But I don't have her touch, her intuition. Is it as special as I think it is? Or am I just seeing it through the lens of grief and memory? I stepped closer, peering at the rose. It truly was magnificent. I'd read about the quest for the blue rose, knew the genetic difficulties involved. What Eleanor had achieved, or was on the cusp of achieving, was remarkable. The color was so subtle, so complex, it felt like looking into a summer evening sky. Arthur, I said, my voice barely a whisper. It's extraordinary. It's more than special. It's a miracle. I reached out a tentative finger, almost afraid to touch it, then drew back. Her notes, you said she left notes? He nodded, gesturing to a small, weather-beaten wooden desk tucked in a corner, piled high with gardening journals and seed catalogs. Pages and pages. Diagrams, observations, even poetry about her flowers sometimes. An idea began to form in my mind, a tentative, exciting possibility. Arthur, I began, choosing my words carefully. You said Tom mentioned I have a way with making things grow. It's true, I love it. I've never worked with anything as significant as this, of course. But her notes, her legacy perhaps, if you'd be willing, I could look at them? Maybe, just maybe, I could help you understand how to care for it, even propagate it, so that Eleanor's midnight blue doesn't remain a solitary wonder. His face, which had been etched with worry and uncertainty, slowly began to clear. A light of hope seemed to dawn in his eyes. You would do that, Sarah? You would be willing to spend time here with her work? I would be honored, I said, and I meant it with all my heart. This was more than just a favor for my husband's boss. This was a chance to connect with the spirit of a woman I'd never met, to nurture something beautiful and rare, and perhaps in the process, to help a kind man preserve a precious part of his heart. The thought of immersing myself in Eleanor's notes, of trying to understand her passion and her methods, filled me with an unexpected sense of purpose. It felt like an adventure, a quiet, gentle adventure, but one that resonated deeply within me. Arthur let out a long breath, a sigh that seemed to carry years of pent-up anxiety. "Sarah," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to thank you. This means more to me than I can possibly say." He gestured around the greenhouse, at the vibrant life teeming within its glass walls. This place, it was her soul. And that rose, it's like a final gift from her. The thought of it being lost. He couldn't finish the sentence. "We won't let that happen," I said with a confidence that surprised even myself. "Together, we'll learn its secrets." The afternoon sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the garden as we finally left the greenhouse. Arthur seemed lighter, his steps more buoyant than when I had arrived. He walked me back through the main garden, now sharing anecdotes about Eleanor, funny little stories about her battles with stubborn weeds or her delight when a particularly challenging plant finally thrived. It was as if my offer had unlocked a treasure trove of memories he was now eager to share. As we reached the front door, he turned to me. I usually spend Saturday mornings out here," he said. "If you're free, perhaps you could come then? We could go through Eleanor's journals together. I can show you her system." "Saturday morning would be perfect," I replied, a genuine smile on my face. "I'll bring my reading glasses and a notebook." "Thank you, Sarah." "Truly." He extended his hand and I shook it. His grip was firm, but gentle. There was a warmth there that hadn't been present in our previous, formal encounters. It felt like the beginning of an unlikely, but rather wonderful, friendship. Driving home, the city streets seemed a little brighter, the ordinary world imbued with a touch of the magic I had just witnessed. I thought about Tom and how surprised he would be when I told him about my afternoon. I thought about Eleanor, a woman I would never know, yet felt connected to through her extraordinary passion. And I thought about Arthur Davies, a man who had revealed himself to be so much more than the stern, imposing figure I had imagined. He was a man nursing a profound grief, yes, but also a man nurturing a legacy of beauty and love. What he had shown me in private wasn't just a garden or a rare flower. It was his heart, his vulnerability, his enduring connection to the woman he had loved. And in sharing it, he had given me a gift too, a sense of purpose, a new connection, and the quiet excitement of a shared endeavor. The initial apprehension had completely given way to a feeling of warmth and anticipation. This unexpected journey, it seemed, was just beginning. I couldn't wait for Saturday.